Hey guys, tonight we are not in the warmth of a medieval hearth, or on the swaying deck of a crusader's ship. No, this time we are in East Africa 100,000 years ago. The sun has just set, and the savannah smells of dust, cooling stone, and the faint musk of animals moving somewhere beyond the dark. The air is still, but your skin prickles because somewhere in that shadowy grassland, a predator might be watching. You crouch low with the rest of your small band, 24 people, maybe, and all eyes are on a single hunter who's frozen mid-step. He has not spoken, not in the way we'd recognize, but the low, sharp grunt that just came from his throat tells everyone exactly what's wrong. It's not words yet, but it's language. You probably won't survive this unless you know exactly what those sounds mean. In this world, missing a signal isn't just embarrassing, it's deadly. So before we go further into the world where language was still learning to walk, you can like the video and subscribe, but only if you want to keep the story going all the way to the very first words. And hey, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I'd love to know where in the world we're sharing this moment. Now, lean in, we're gonna listen for the very first sounds that meant more than just noise. The first thing you notice in this ancient band of Homo sapiens is that their mouths and throats are capable of a surprising range of noises. Sharp, high-pitched calls for alarm, low grumbles to warn without attracting attention, soft cooing to calm a frightened child. None of it structured into sentences, but each sound carries a meaning everyone here understands. The sharp double keke from a woman scanning the horizon means she's spotted movement. A drawn-out, almost whining hum might mean stay close. These are the oldest roots of human communication, sounds linked to survival. It's not unique to humans. You've heard monkeys scream when a leopard's near, or birds change their calls depending on the predator. But here's what's different. These people are using a wider range of sound for more than just alarm. They have noises for encouragement, for scolding, for joy, for invitation. They have what you could call a proto-vocabulary, and it's growing in complexity because life demands it. The savannah is a dangerous classroom. You need to be able to signal lion, without pointing directly at the lion. You need to warn snake when your hands are full. You need to share a location, that waterhole over there, without dragging the whole group into harm's way. This is where vocalization starts to specialize. A click here, a whistle there. Sounds that mean nothing to you now, but once upon a time, they carried life or death weight. And here's the clever part. Emotion is built right into these sounds. An urgent bark isn't just telling you something's wrong. It tells you how wrong, and how soon. You don't just hear the sound, you feel its importance. That's what makes early human vocalizations more versatile than most animal calls. Around the fire at night, these same people will use those vocal tones for entirely different purposes. Soft crooning to soothe an infant, playful mimicry to make others laugh, exaggerated huffs and growls to reenact the day's hunt. Even now you can tell they're not just passing time, they're practicing communication. Every sound that works gets remembered, every sound that doesn't fades away. And think about the social glue this creates. Without shared meaning, this little group would fall apart. But with it, they can warn each other, find food together, comfort each other, and even joke. Language, primitive though it is already binding them as much as kinship and shared danger. In these earliest stages, there is no agreed-upon set of words. A sound for leopard might vary from band to band, but the seeds are here. The human vocal tract, more flexible than that of our closest relatives, can produce a staggering array of noises, vowels, consonants, clicks and tones. And somewhere out there in the grass, a danger is always lurking to make sure they keep practicing. You huddle closer to the group, your ears straining. A child lets out a questioning, "Aha," and the mother responds with a sharp, firm grunt. The message is clear: don't wander, no grammar, no syntax. But you understand, and in that instant, you realize before words, before writing, before everything that came later, this is how we first learned to speak. You wake the next morning to the sound of feet scuffing the packed earth outside the sleeping hollow. The air is cold and damp, mist clings to the acacia trees, and your breath makes tiny clouds in the pale light. No one says get up. Instead, there's a soft hand gesture, a circling motion with the fingers that tells you it's time to move. That single gesture says more than any sound could. We're leaving now, quietly. Long before we spoke in full sentences, our bodies were fluent. A tilt of the head, a widening of the eyes, a palm turned outward, they were our first grammar. You can see it in action all around you. One man points to the east, his index finger like an arrow. Another lifts his chin in the same direction, reinforcing the meaning. A woman presses her forefinger to her lips, a request for silence, while her other hand sweeps low to indicate crouching. Without a single sound, a plan is forming. These gestures aren't random. Over generations, they've become consistent within the group. A lifted palm always means stop. A quick forward flick of the wrist means go. Over time, they've been honed to work in the worst conditions: darkness, wind, the chaos of a hunt. You follow the group toward a low ridge where the grass thins. From here, you can see a wide plain dotted with grazing antelope. A man glances at a woman across the group, and in an instant, a conversation unfolds entirely in movement. A raised brow from him, a subtle shake of the head from her, a shrug in return. You're watching syntax emerge, not in words but in body language. Think about how universal some gestures still are today. Pointing, waving, shushing. They cross cultures because they're older than culture itself. The people here aren't inventing them, they're refining them. Every gesture that works gets passed on, not just in this group, but to the children who watch every motion with serious eyes. Children are the great apprentices of gesture. One boy squats, mimicking the way the hunters crouch before moving forward. He exaggerates the hand signal for quiet, earning a ripple of silent amusement from the adults. This is more than play, it's training. By copying, he's absorbing the group's entire visual vocabulary. You watch as gestures begin to stack, like words in a sentence. A man points, then makes a circular motion with his finger, then spreads his hands apart. Alone, those movements mean there, circle, and big. Together they mean we'll go around a large herd. That's proto-grammar in physical form. No verb tenses, no articles, just compressed meaning in rapid-fire sequence. And here's the beauty of it: gesture is silent. That's critical when you're hunting, hiding from predators, or sneaking close to a wary animal. It's also visible from a distance, where even the sharpest ear couldn't pick out a whisper. But gesture has limits. You can't use it in the dark, or when your hands are busy carrying a carcass, or when your audience is facing away. You can't signal to someone hidden behind a boulder or inside the twist of a cave, and that's why sound will eventually take over. But for now, right here, right now, gesture is king. The group settles behind a cluster of thorn bushes. A man in front raises two fingers, then points them toward his own eyes, then at the antelope herd. Look there. A second later, a woman sweeps her arm to the left. Go round. The plan is set. No one said a thing. And here's a little modern aside for you: you still do this, even now. You wave to get attention, throw up your hands in frustration, or point to an empty coffee cup to signal you want more. You might think of it as casual body language, but it's the ghost of our oldest communication still riding along in every conversation. As the hunt begins, you see one more function of gesture: emotion. A clenched fist means hold steady but also carries the tension of anticipation. A slow hand wave downward says stay calm while showing the calmer's own steadiness. Through motion alone, people can soothe or energize, persuade or warn. And when the hunters finally creep into position, a single raised hand freezes everyone. No sound, no fuss, just a signal everyone trusts because they've known it all their lives. You're watching the foundation of language, not in the mouth but in the body. The blueprint is here. Shared meaning, agreed signs, learned sequences. All that's left is to give them a voice. The sun has burned off the morning mist, leaving the air dry and shimmering. The hunt has ended with a clean strike, one antelope down, its muscles still twitching faintly as the group begins to work. Now comes the part no animal can do quite like humans: dividing the meat and deciding who gets what. And you're about to see why social life, more than the hunt itself, fuels the need for complex communication. In this small band, every person matters. You can't afford rivalries to flare into blood feuds. You can't afford misunderstandings that send someone sulking away from camp with their skills and food. This is where the role of social groups begins to shape the future of language. You notice it right away. There's no leader barking orders. Instead, food is passed. Portions are gestured for, offers made with palms up and heads tilted in question. Sometimes vocalizations cut through, a short nasal hum for agreement, a high-pitched syllable for refusal. Even now, with mostly gestures and simple calls, people are negotiating. And a negotiation is tricky without a shared way to signal mine, yours, enough, or more. The group has developed specific cues for each. A quick outward push of the hand means you keep it. A subtle tug toward the chest means I'll take that. The sounds are just as important: a rising tone for asking, a falling tone for stating. Here's the thing: in a dangerous world, Cooperation is survival, and cooperation requires not just pointing out a predator, but also making agreements about who hunts, who guards, who carries, and who eats first. Those are the kind of arrangements you can't get across with a single grunt. You need patterns, repetition, and recognition. Later in the day, the group circles up under the shade of a wide-armed tree. Some sit to carve tools from bone and stone, others begin processing hides. Here, communication is relaxed and playful. You hear sounds that clearly aren't urgent, low murmurs, as one man imitates the sound of the antelope's death cry, drawing laughter. This social play builds bonds, and in doing so builds the shared code of meaning that will one day be called language. Children are in the middle of everything. One girl, barely old enough to walk, toddles up to a basket of roots. She points, makes a nasal "mern" sound, and looks expectantly at her mother. The mother repeats the sound back, then gives her one of the roots. That's reinforcement, primitive teaching. Over time, those "mern" noises will standardize into the group's word-like sounds for food. This constant loop, needing to get things done, using both gesture and sound to make it happen, and teaching the next generation, creates a feedback cycle. The more the group interacts, the more precise and varied the signals become, and the more precise they become, the easier it is to live together without constant fighting. It's not all harmony. Sometimes two hunters argue over who struck the first blow in the hunt. The air grows tense. Hands slice through the air in sharp motions. Voices rise. But here's the critical point. These disputes rarely come to blows, because communication offers another way out. Even without full language, there's the ability to talk down a conflict with calming tones, placating gestures, and compromise signs. Think about that for a moment. Chimpanzees settle disputes with force or by ignoring each other until tempers cool. Early humans, they could patch things up in minutes. That skill to solve problems before they turn bloody would give them a massive advantage over any species that couldn't. As night falls, the band forms its circle around the fire. Smoke curls into the dark, the stars begin to prick through the black sky, and the day's tensions fade into warmth and safety. Here, social signals take on a new form: shared laughter, soft imitations of each other's quirks, and rhythmic clapping that pulls everyone into sync. You realize something important. Language isn't born from hunting or from survival alone. It's born from living together. It grows in the spaces between people, the hand that offers food, the laugh that eases tension, the sound that calls a child close, and in this small circle of firelight, that growth is happening right in front of you. It's still dark when the first sound cuts through the half-silence of the camp, a low, deep ooh from somewhere in the grass. Your eyes snap open. The sound isn't human, it's the guttural, throaty cough of a big cat. Every muscle in the group goes taut, and then it happens. Your band answers not with random shouting, but with something remarkably precise. A sharp, repeated kkk bursts from one man, loud enough to carry but distinct enough to be recognized instantly. Everyone freezes, even the children. You're witnessing one of the most powerful engines behind early language imitation and mimicry. In the animal world, plenty of species imitate sounds. Birds mimic alarms, dolphins copy whistles, but humans take it further. You watch as a second man, eyes wide, mimics the cough of the predator in a quieter tone, pointing toward where he heard it. This isn't play, it's a check. He's asking, this sound, this danger. The first man nods sharply. Without a shared vocabulary, they're verifying information by repeating it. It's genius, really. By copying sounds, whether from animals, the environment, or other humans, the group builds a mental library. That KK call, everyone here knows it means predator nearby. It's not just the sound, it's the association burned into memory after dozens of dangerous encounters. As the sky begins to pale, the predator slinks away, deciding this many alert humans aren't worth the trouble. The tension breaks, and now the mood shifts. A woman clicks her tongue 3 times, imitating the cracking sound of dry branches under the cat's paws. This earns a ripple of nervous laughter. Even in fear, imitation binds people together. Later, as the group moves toward the day's foraging ground, you hear mimicry in another form. Teaching, a young boy crouches next to his father, who points to a set of fresh hoof prints in the dust. The father makes a low haw sound, then gestures forward. The boy repeats it, uncertain at first, then stronger. He's learning both the sound for the animal and the skill of reproducing it accurately. This copying isn't limited to hunting or danger. Around midday, the group rests in the shade of a rocky outcrop. A pair of women exchange playful mimicry, exaggerating each other's earlier gestures. imitating the nasal tone of a scolding elder, complete with dramatic facial expressions. The laughter is loud, open-mouthed, and entirely human. This is more than entertainment, it's rehearsal. Every imitation strengthens the group's capacity to map sounds and gestures to specific meanings. In a world without writing, mimicry is the memory stick. If you can reproduce a sound, you can pass it on exactly or close enough for others to recognize it later. That's how one band's warning call for snake might travel hundreds of miles through intergroup contact, slowly evolving along the way. And here's a modern parallel. You still do this. Ever catch yourself repeating a friend's exact tone when you're telling a story, or mimicking an accent, just to get the feel right? That's the same ancient neural wiring at work, the instinct to store and transmit meaning through faithful reproduction. By evening, the group has collected roots, berries, and a few small game animals. The sun sinks low, washing the savannah in gold. Around the fire, someone begins imitating the crackle of burning wood, then the screech of a startled bird, then the cough of the big cat from that morning. The group howls with laughter. The sounds are exaggerated now, turned into a kind of performance. You realize this is the seed of both storytelling and theater, shared events replayed through sound and action. In this mix of danger, humor, and practice, imitation is doing something profound. It's creating a common reference point. Everyone here knows exactly what those sounds mean because they've heard them, lived them, and repeated them. And once a community has a shared bank of remembered signals, the leap to consistent, structured language is only a matter of time. The days are growing hotter, and the air has that brittle, bone-dry quality that tells you the wet season is far behind. You travel with the group toward a shallow riverbed where a few scattered pools still shimmer in the heat. The path winds between tall grass and scrub, the ground littered with footprints, human and animal alike. This is where something remarkable happens. A young woman stoops, points to a particular track in the mud, and makes a short repeated na-na sound. Instantly, several heads turn. That sound isn't random, it's a name, not for a person, but for the herd of antelope that often comes here. You're watching the birth of naming. It's a subtle but revolutionary leap. Up until now, sounds and gestures mostly described actions or states. Danger, come here, food. But now, a specific sound pattern is being tied directly to a thing, a unique reference that everyone in the group understands. When she says na-na, it doesn't mean look or hunt. It means that herd of antelope, the one we all know. Names like this spread quickly because they're useful. Within minutes, others are repeating the sound as they prepare for the hunt. One man, sharpening his spear, mutters na-na under his breath, as if focusing on the target. The association deepens with every repetition. Later, around the fire, you hear more examples. A pointed stick, decorated with carved notches, is passed between two men. One says, "tack," in a clipped, confident tone. The other nods and repeats it. Now that tool has a name too. A particular bend in the river becomes Lu. A woman's newborn son is called Mabo, a sound pattern that will follow him his entire life. It's easy to miss just how huge this is. Names anchor memory. Once you name something, you can talk about it even when it's not there. Na-na can mean those antelope we saw last week, or those antelope we'll hunt tomorrow. This ability to refer to absent things, the core of symbolic thought, is a major step toward true language. Of course, there are still no rules for how these names are formed. Sometimes they're imitative, like na-na mimicking the antelope's call. Sometimes they're arbitrary, like Lu for the bend in the river. Sometimes they seem born from an inside joke only the group understands. But once a name sticks, it becomes part of the group's mental map of the world. You notice that not everyone can create a name that sticks. Certain individuals, often the most socially connected or charismatic, have a knack for coining sounds that catch on. When these people name something, others adopt it quickly. When a less influential person tries, the sound often fades away. Even here, language is shaped by power and status. One night, after a successful hunt, the group sits in high spirits. Someone suggests naming the new hunting path they've discovered. A lively exchange follows. People throw out sound patterns, laugh, shake their heads, or repeat one approvingly. Finally, a short, punchy crack wins. From this moment on, crack is that path, and the sound will be passed on to every child born into the group. The ripple effect is staggering. Once a thing has a name, it becomes easier to talk about, easier to remember, and easier to teach. Hunting strategies improve because people can say we'll wait at crack instead of pantomiming the entire idea. Gathering roots gets safer because someone can warn snakes at Lu. By the time the moon is high, you've heard at least 24 names exchanged in the group's easy rhythm of talk, gesture and mimicry. This isn't a random jumble anymore, it's a growing lexicon, a word bank being shaped, tested, and solidified in real time. And the truth is, once humans start naming things, they never stop. Morning light spills over the plain in pale gold, touching every stone and thorn bush with warmth. The camp is already awake. You hear low hums and murmured clicks as people move about, but your attention is drawn to one scene in particular, a woman crouched beside a toddler, repeating a soft baba as she holds up a smooth round gourd filled with water. The child tries it, first as a squeak, then with more certainty, baba. The woman nods, gives a smile, and hands the gourd over. That's teaching the young, and it's not just kindness, it's survival training disguised as everyday interaction. For early humans, the only way to preserve a sound's meaning is to pass it down deliberately. Children are sponges, but without reinforcement, they won't retain the exact pitch, timing or context of a call, so the group repeats, models and corrects constantly. The moment a child misuses a sound, someone nearby will either laugh and fix it, or ignore the mistake until the right version emerges. You see this all day long. A boy points to a thorn tree and says Lou, which you know is the group's name for the river bend. Instantly, his older sister shakes her head and makes the sharp click-tap sound that does mean the thorn tree. The boy repeats it, testing the shape of the sound in his mouth. This process is everywhere. A mother exaggerates a warning call while holding a child's gaze, ensuring the association is burned in. An elder acts out an entire sequence, pointing at the ground, miming a snake's slither, and producing the hiss-like sound that means danger underfoot. Children play games where they call each other using the band's animal signals, giggling when someone mistakes a leopard for a monkey. Teaching here is not formal. There's no sitting down in a line, no lecture. Instead, it's woven into the rhythms of daily life. A child who follows a gathering party learns plant names by hearing them shouted or whispered in the moment of discovery. A child who joins a hunt learns hand signals in the tense seconds before a throw. But this isn't just about memorizing names and sounds, it's about learning when and how to use them. Timing, tone and context are everything. A soft care might mean come in the safety of camp, but in the hunt it could mean freeze. Children absorb these nuances by watching adults respond to them in real time. You also notice that adults are patient, up to a point. If a child gets a sound wrong in a harmless situation, there's laughter and encouragement. If they get it wrong in a dangerous one, the correction is swift and sharp. One false alarm about a predator and the whole camp goes tense. One missed warning and someone could die. By evening the younger ones are still at it, imitating each other, inventing nonsense sounds and sometimes accidentally creating patterns that older members latch onto. Language is not only being passed down, it's being reshaped by these playful experiments. And here's the striking part. Unlike other animals, where communication is mostly instinctual, humans are actively taught how to speak. This means language can grow, adapt, and specialize far faster than anything inherited solely through genetics. Every generation can add to the stockpile, refine it, and hand it forward. You watch the toddler from that morning toddle back to the water gourd before bed. She points, says bye-bye in her tiny voice, and everyone nearby smiles. It's not just cute, it's proof that the sound has taken root. Tomorrow she'll say it again. Next week she'll teach it to someone younger than her. The chain remains unbroken. The night is alive with sound, but not all of it is random. The fire crackles, a low hum passes between two women working a hide, and somewhere on the edge of the circle, a group of children clap their hands in rhythm. You're about to see one of humanity's most unlikely but powerful tools for communication take shape, music and rhythm as memory tools. At first, it's just two people tapping stones together in an easy beat. Then another joins in, slapping a hollow log to fill the spaces in between. A woman hums a pattern that rises and falls predictably. You can feel the group start to lean toward the sound, bodies swaying slightly. This isn't entertainment alone, it's a rehearsal hall for language. Rhythm, it turns out, makes things easier to remember. When you tie a sound to a beat, the pattern sticks in your mind. Hunters can learn the sequence of steps in a stalk by chanting them. Gatherers can memorize the locations of seasonal plants by singing about landmarks. The steady pulse is a scaffold, and words or proto-words cling to it like vines. Tonight, the group is rehearsing a path to a far-off waterhole. The leader claps, clap, clap, pause, clap, and with each beat, someone chants a name: first the bend in the river, Lou, then the flat-topped rock, Bam, then the grove of thorn trees, tick tick. Even you, new to their system, find the pattern sinking into your head after a few repetitions. It's more than practical. Music and rhythm pull the group into sync physically and emotionally. People's breathing matches, movements align, and tension drops. Around a fire in the dark with predators somewhere out there, this shared beat tells every member of the band, we're together, we're alert, and we know the way. Children pick up rhythm first. Before they master precise hand signals or sound patterns, they can keep time by clapping or stomping. You watch a boy of maybe 3 years stomp along to the chant, repeating the names with proud precision. For him, this is play. For the group, it's the passing down of critical geographic knowledge without a map. And rhythm is versatile. In the daylight, hunters use it to pace their approach, keeping the group moving in silent unison. Gatherers use it when sorting plants. 3 beats for edible leaves, 1 sharp tap for dangerous ones. Even rituals borrow it, with certain beats marking the beginning or end of a ceremony. You notice that sometimes the rhythm is tied to movement, walking, pounding grain, twisting fiber into rope. The work itself becomes the metronome, and the words ride on top, so that every task reinforces memory without feeling like a lesson. Late in the night, the beat slows, the hum softens, and the words fade into elongated tones. You catch fragments, names of ancestors, landmarks long since visited, animals that only come with the rains. This isn't just navigation now, it's history, encoded in music. The group is preserving its collective memory, wrapping it in a melody that will last far longer than any one lifetime. And here's the part you might not expect: this practice never truly goes away. Thousands of years from now, people will still teach their children through nursery rhymes, sing ballads to remember battles, and chant prayers to keep sacred words alive. You're looking at the original blueprint for every song you've ever heard. The fire dies down, but the rhythm stays in your mind. You could walk to that waterhole tomorrow without asking once for directions, and that's the point. Long before we had writing, music was our notebook. The morning starts with the smell of dust and the faint coppery tang of old blood, signs that the hunters have returned from an early stalk. Today you'll see how communication becomes razor sharp in one of humanity's most dangerous and complex activities, language and the hunt. From the moment you leave camp, it's clear that hunting talk is nothing like the relaxed exchanges of the fire circle. Every sound, every gesture, is stripped down to bare necessity. You move in a tight group, eyes scanning the tall grass, ears tuned to the smallest rustle. Nobody says be careful. Instead, the leader flicks his wrist toward the ground. Move low. You obey without thinking. As the stalk begins, you notice that the group's vocabulary changes entirely. Sounds are minimal, almost whispered into the air. A short, high tick might mean, look there. A double click could mean stop. You've already learned that clicks and whistles carry well through open space without sounding like human speech to an animal's ear. They blend with bird calls and insect noises, masking the hunter's presence. It's not all sound though. Hand signals dominate. A closed fist signals freeze. 2 fingers, palm down, sweeping left means circle that way. A pointed thumb over the shoulder says retreat. These cues have been drilled into every hunter until they're automatic. What's fascinating is how the system adapts mid-hunt. When the leader sees a cluster of fresh tracks, he invents a new signal on the spot, index finger drawing a looping shape in the air to mean split and surround. Everyone instantly understands from the context. This kind of on-the-fly invention is only possible because the group shares the same mental framework for turning actions into agreed signs. The hunt is also a masterclass in using tone for precision. A soft "who" might mean come closer if it rises in pitch, but stay where you are if it falls. Context is everything, and you're constantly watching faces, hands, and the shape of a sound to get the full meaning. And here's the thing, this isn't just about killing animals. The hunt is also a rehearsal space for all other communication. You're learning how to coordinate without chaos, how to share a plan without explaining it from scratch, how to adjust when the situation changes. These skills translate to every part of life: moving camp, defending against predators, even deciding where to dig for water. The real test comes when the antelope herd appears. Everyone drops into a crouch. The leader sends 2 hunters wide to the left with a silent gesture, while the rest creep forward. When the moment comes, a single sharp whistle splits the air. Instantly the flanking hunters rise, driving the herd toward the waiting spears. The kill is quick, efficient, and most importantly safe for the group.
Only after the animal is down does the air fill with sound again. Cheers, laughter, mimicry of the antelope's last startled cry. The tension dissolves into celebration, and the group slips easily back into their everyday rhythm. But the language of the hunt lingers in memory, ready to be pulled out again the next time it's needed.
That's the brilliance of this system. It's portable, adaptable, and layered. The same click that means stop on a hunt might mean wait when crossing a river. The same hand signal for circle might be used to organize a dance in a ceremony. Nothing is wasted. As the hunters shoulder the carcass and start back toward camp, you realize something important. Hunting isn't just teaching them how to eat, it's teaching them how to think together, and that more than the meat itself is what will carry humanity forward. The hunt is over, the carcass dressed, and the meat roasting on spits above the fire. The smell is thick, rich, fatty, a little smoky, bellies are full, and the tension of the day has dissolved into easy conversation. This is when another pillar of early communication emerges, storytelling around the fire. It begins with a man imitating the way the antelope stumbled before the final throw. His body hunches, his legs buckle, his eyes roll wide, laughter ripples through the group. Then he adds the whistle signal from earlier, and suddenly everyone's reliving the moment. No one says, "And then you came in from the left." They show it, they repeat the sound, they build the hunt again out of the same blocks of sound and movement that made it possible in the first place. But now, something new happens. A woman steps in to tell her own version of the hunt, not the literal one but an exaggerated, funnier take. She makes the predator from last week's scare reappear in the middle of the stalk, sending everyone scattering. The group roars with laughter. You're seeing the first hint of fiction, not a lie meant to deceive, but a crafted version of events meant to entertain and bond. Around this fire, repetition is the glue. Sounds, gestures and sequences are repeated for emphasis, rhythm and memorability. When a child pipes up to mimic the whistle from the hunt, the adults cheer them on. In that moment, the child isn't just playing, they're learning the story. And stories serve a deeper function than entertainment. They encode practical knowledge. A tale about a hunter who ignored a warning call and got injured becomes a cautionary lesson. A funny story about a misinterpreted gesture becomes a reminder. To be clear, even events from long before the children were born are kept alive this way, passed from mouth to ear until they feel like everyone was there. This is where language begins to stretch beyond the here and now. The group talks about things that happened earlier in the day, or weeks ago, or seasons past. They talk about hunts gone wrong, storms survived, and animals seen in far-off valleys. The ability to refer to the past and to imagine the future is becoming central to human thought. It's not all practical. Some stories are pure play, tall tales about impossibly large prey, magical rivers, or animals that speak back to humans. These might be born from dreams, from imagination, or from a storyteller's desire to keep the fire circle leaning in just a little longer before sleep. You notice that the best storytellers use everything at their disposal. Hand gestures to set the scene, tone changes to mimic characters, body movement to pace the drama. They're proto-actors, proto-directors, proto-poets, building narrative worlds with nothing but air, voice and motion. And the fire itself helps. In the flicker of light and shadow, gestures look larger, faces more expressive. The darkness beyond makes the circle feel small and safe, so attention stays locked in. The audience is captive, and the teller knows it. Here's the deeper truth. These fireside performances aren't just about keeping boredom away. They're strengthening memory, reinforcing group values, and honing the tools of persuasion. Every time someone tells a story, they're practicing the ability to shape reality through communication, a skill that will one day decide the fate of entire communities. By the time the coals are glowing low, the laughter has softened and the night is heavy with the sound of breathing. The last storyteller hums a low tune, almost like a lullaby, repeating a few simple words, half song, half spell. The circle drifts towards sleep, but the stories linger in every mind, ready to be told again tomorrow. The rains come suddenly, sweeping across the plain in a curtain of silver. The air smells like wet earth and crushed green leaves, and the ground drinks greedily. It's during this season, when water and food are more plentiful, that groups travel farther, and when people from other bands appear on the horizon, you're about to witness another milestone in the growth of language, trade and cross-group contact. At first the meeting is cautious. Two groups face each other at a distance, scanning for weapons, allies and signs of trouble. You can feel the tension in the air, because no one here fully knows the other's signals or sounds. But slowly, members from each side step forward, holding up objects in open palms, a bundle of dried meat, a cluster of red ochre lubs, a shell necklace. The items themselves are an unspoken invitation, let's exchange. This is where the language challenge becomes real. Inside your own group, every gesture and sound has a shared meaning, but here, nana might mean antelope to your people, and danger to theirs. A raised hand could mean hello or stop. The room for deadly misunderstanding is enormous. So the exchange begins with the universal, mimicry, demonstration, and slow repetition. A man from your band points at the ochre, rubs it on his arm, and says, "Shah." The visitors repeat the motion, and the sound, nodding. They might adopt the word, or they might translate it into their own, but for now both sides can use it here and now to finish the trade. Over the course of hours, new hybrid signals emerge, gestures borrowed from each group, sounds simplified so both sides can pronounce them. You can hear the compromise in every syllable, clipped endings, smoothed consonants, repeated vowels. It's not about preserving the purity of a sound, it's about making sure it's understood. One particularly striking moment comes when a woman from your group notices a tool she's never seen before, a long, thin scraper made from a pale stone. She points, imitates its scraping motion, and makes an approving grunt. The owner laughs, repeats her sound, and then adds a clicking noise. By the end of the day, both groups are using a blend of grunt plus click to refer to the tool. You've just watched the birth of a shared word across cultures. This kind of exchange isn't just about goods, it's about ideas. Along with ochre, shells, and meat, what's really being traded is communication technology. Each group leaves knowing a little more about how to express itself to strangers. These interactions force language to stretch, to adapt, to invent entirely new solutions for gaps in shared meaning. It's also a crash course in diplomacy. Even the smallest misstep, a sound too close to an insult in the other group's system, can freeze the trade cold. So people become careful listeners and quick adapters. A single meeting like this can seed dozens of new sounds, gestures, and naming conventions that will ripple through the home camp long after the strangers are gone. By the time both groups part ways, they've not only exchanged goods, but also enriched their linguistic toolkits. Some of the borrowed signals will fade, others will take root, and become as natural as the ones they were born with. As you watch them vanish into the wet horizon, you realize something important. Isolation may create a language, but contact, especially with outsiders, makes it grow faster than anything else. Every new encounter is a chance to expand what humans can say, and how they can say it. The dry season returns, and with it, scarcity. You can feel it in the air: more tense glances, tighter circles around the fire, fewer laughs that last more than a breath. This is when resources become sharp-edged things, and words or the lack of them can mean the difference between peace and bloodshed. You're about to see how conflict and diplomacy begin shaping language. It starts with a dispute over meat. The hunters claim they risked their lives for the kill, so they should decide how it's shared. The gatherers counter with gestures and sounds that point out their own contributions, roots, berries, and nuts that have kept everyone alive between hunts. Voices rise, and the air thickens with heat and challenge. What's fascinating here is that no one simply charges in with fists. Even without full sentences, people know they have options beyond violence. The tools are primitive: raised hands, pointed fingers, sharp tones, but the function is sophisticated. They're making arguments. A repeated sound, rising in pitch, becomes emphasis. A gesture toward the children adds moral weight. They must eat too. Then comes something you haven't seen before: mediation. A respected elder moves between the two groups, palms out, voice low and steady. They use repetition to slow the pace of the argument, mimicking each side's key sounds and gestures so both feel heard. In doing this, the elder is building common ground, literally shaping a shared mini-language for the dispute that all can agree on. This is the seed of diplomacy. It's not about grammar or complex vocabulary yet, it's about the process of finding words, or proto-words, that everyone will accept. The sounds chosen in these moments matter. If the wrong tone is used, it might inflame tempers. If a gesture is too sharp, it might be seen as a threat. Eventually, compromise emerges. The elder uses a soft, repeated mama while pointing first to the meat, then to the baskets of gathered food, then to the center of the camp. The meaning is simple: combine the resources and share equally. The group repeats the sound, testing it, feeling its weight, and slowly the tension eases. You realize what's happening. This shared ma isn't just solving this problem, it's becoming a template for resolving future disputes. It's the first step toward a vocabulary of agreement, warning, and negotiation. Conflict, it turns out, is a powerful teacher. When everything is fine, there's less need for precision, but when emotions run high, precision is survival. Language gets sharper, cleaner, more deliberate under pressure. People learn which sounds soothe, which escalate, and which carry authority. And just as in the hunt, these skills are transferable. The same calm, rhythmic tones that ease an argument can be used to settle frightened children during a storm. The same careful repetition that bridges a dispute can help in trade with strangers. Every fight is a lesson in how to talk so others will listen. By nightfall, the camp is quiet again. People share the meal without lingering resentment. The elder's mama is now just part of the background, a gentle sound that means let's be fair. You've just watched a single sound become part of the cultural memory, tied forever to the feeling of peace after tension. And here's the quiet truth. The more humans learn to solve problems with voices instead of weapons, the more they'll need language. The moon is high, throwing silver light across the clearing, when you notice the group gathered in a circle, not for a hunt, not for a dispute, but for something entirely different. A low, steady chant rises into the air, voices blending into a single pulsing rhythm. You're watching the birth of ritual and ceremony, and with it, one of the most enduring engines of language growth. It begins with sound. Deep, repeated syllables, ha ha ha, spaced evenly between drum-like thumps on a hollow log. The voices swell and drop in a pattern that's impossible to ignore. This isn't random noise, it's structured, intentional, and everyone knows their part. In the center of the circle, an elder paints a young man's face with red ochre, marking his passage into adulthood. The words, or proto-words, spoken here, are different from daily conversation. They're drawn out, almost sung. Their repetition, giving them a sense of weight. These ceremonial sounds are like verbal landmarks, anchoring important moments in memory. You realize that rituals require stability. If the sound pattern changes too much, it loses its power, so the group works to preserve these syllables exactly as they've been passed down. This means language here becomes a kind of living fossil, protected from casual change, even as everyday speech shifts and evolves. Gestures take on symbolic force too. A slow, deliberate raising of both arms means welcomed anew. A single hand pressed to the chest means speak truth. These aren't improvised cues like those used on a hunt. They're fixed, agreed upon elements of the ceremony. They're as much a part of the language of ritual as the words themselves. And here's the key. Ceremonies create shared emotional intensity. When everyone feels the same awe, joy, or grief at the same time, the words tied to those emotions become deeply ingrained. That's why certain sounds, whether for praise, mourning, or blessing, can survive unchanged for generations. Not all rituals are solemn. The next night, you see a different kind of gathering, a dance to mark the full moon. Here, the language is lighter, laughter, playful mimicry of animals, chants that rise and fall in a way that mimics the moon climbing the sky. Even this playful ceremony reinforces shared meaning and strengthens group cohesion. Ritual also serves another, more practical purpose. It gives people a reason to rehearse language outside of immediate necessity. In daily life, you might only say danger when there's a predator, or water when you're thirsty. But in ritual, you repeat sounds over and over, not because you need them right now, but because they matter to your identity as a group. And there's something else. Ritual creates specialists. Not everyone can lead a ceremony. Certain individuals, whether through memory, charisma, or lineage, become the keepers of the correct sounds, gestures, and sequences. They guard the integrity of the performance, ensuring that no detail is forgotten. In doing so, they become some of the earliest custodians of language. By the time the chant fades and the fire dies low, you feel the weight of what you've seen. These people may not have a written script, but they have something just as strong, a living, breathing tradition, where language isn't just a tool for survival, it's a bridge to meaning, belonging, and something bigger than themselves. And in this firelit circle, with the echo of those ancient syllables still hanging in the air, you realize, language doesn't only grow in the practical moments, it flourishes in the sacred ones. The season turns again, and with it comes a subtle but powerful shift in how people speak. You start to notice that sounds aren't just being thrown together at random anymore, they're starting to follow rules. You're about to witness the formation of the first proto-grammar. It happens one afternoon as the group prepares to move camp. A woman points toward the hills and makes the sound Lu, the group's name for the bend in the river. Then she adds a sharp care at the end, a sound you've heard before but never in this order. You've heard care on its own to mean go, but here paired with Lu, it's clear, go to the river bend. This is more than naming, It's combining elements in a consistent way to create a new meaning. Others repeat it exactly, Luca, without changing the order, as if the sequence matters now. Over the next days you hear more of these pairings. A sound for antelope, plus the sound for see means I see antelope. The order is fixed. Flip it, and the meaning shifts, or collapses. That's proto-grammar rules about how to arrange sounds so the message is clear every time. It's not full syntax yet, no tenses, no complex clauses, but the seeds are here. There's a preferred order for sounds, a way to mark action versus object, a rhythm that makes remembering and decoding easier, and just as important, people notice when the order's wrong. Children are the first to play with this new structure. A boy combines snake and find in the right order, then laughs when his sister flips them and produces something nonsensical. The adults chuckle, but they also correct her. Slowly the habit of arranging sounds in a certain sequence becomes the norm. One night, during a quiet fire, an elder strings together 3 separate sounds. Crack, the hunting path, who, come, and mama, share. Everyone understands instantly, come to the hunting path and share. No pantomime, no guessing, just pure sound carrying pure meaning. And here's the magic, this new structure makes it possible to talk about things that haven't happened yet. You can say hunt, go tomorrow by ordering sounds in a way that tells everyone the action is in the future. You can also talk about past events by shifting the sequence slightly or adding a marker sound. Time once trapped in the present moment can now be spoken aloud. This development changes everything. Planning becomes easier, teaching becomes faster, disputes can be settled with greater precision because the details can be laid out in sound alone. And once people can chain meanings together in reliable ways, the number of things they can say and imagine explodes. You watch the change ripple through the group. Hunts run smoother because instructions are clearer. Food gathering becomes more efficient because people can describe exactly which plants to collect and where to find them. Even rituals gain new layers, with chants now built from ordered sound sequences rather than single repeated syllables. By the end of the dry season, the shift is undeniable. These aren't just calls or names anymore, they're sentences in their earliest form, and once humanity discovers how to shape meaning with order, there's no going back. It's the height of the dry season when you notice a subtle hierarchy forming in the way people use their voices. Not everyone here is equal in speech. Some stumble over complex sequences, pausing as they search for the right sound. Others, often the elders, but sometimes a sharp-eyed young hunter, seem to wield sound like a spear, precise and unerring. You're meeting the specialists of speech. These aren't leaders in the way you might think. They don't necessarily hunt the best, or gather the most. What they do have is a gift for shaping and remembering the group's growing web of sounds and gestures. When a new name is coined, they're the ones who spread it until it sticks. When a hunting plan is spoken aloud, they're the ones who can repeat it without losing a detail. Around the fire you see one of them in action, a tall woman with a voice like low drumbeats. She's telling the day's hunt, using not just words but carefully timed pauses, changes in pitch, and even mimicry to hold attention. When she needs to describe the moment the antelope bolted, she switches from narration to pure imitation, nailing the sound so perfectly that half the circle glances toward the grass, as if expecting to see the animal there. People like her become living archives. They remember the chants for rituals, the names of distant waterholes, the sequences of landmarks that lead to the best hunting grounds. When disputes arise over what was said or agreed to, they act as verbal witnesses. I heard him say this in these exact sounds. Their role isn't just memory, it's innovation. When two signals clash in meaning, they can invent a new one that everyone accepts. When a borrowed sound from another group doesn't quite fit, they tweak it so it rolls easily off local tongues. They are in a sense the first editors. Children are drawn to them, crowding close to imitate their sounds. You see a boy repeat a complex 3-part phrase after one such specialist, grinning when the elder nods approval. That's how this skill is passed on, not as a formal title, but as a practice learned by those willing to spend the time mastering it. Over time, these speech specialists become more than just communicators. They shape the very identity of the group, the sounds they preserve, the order they prefer, the new patterns they invent. All of it becomes part of the group's cultural fingerprint. When members travel to trade or marry into other bands, it's often the words and phrases from these specialists that spread outward. And here's the quiet truth you can't miss. Language may grow from everyone's contributions, but it accelerates when a few people dedicate themselves to crafting it. These individuals are the ones who make sure the system doesn't just survive, but thrive, carrying it forward intact and enriched, ready for the next generation to add their voice. By the time night falls, the woman with the low drumbeat voice has finished her story. The group sits in satisfied silence for a long moment before breaking into low chatter. She leans back, eyes half closed, listening as her words ripple outward into the hum of the camp. The language is hers and theirs all at once, alive, growing and remembered. The heat breaks with the first winds of the rainy season, and you notice something you hadn't before. The way people's thinking seems to have expanded alongside their language. You're about to see how language shaping thought changes not just what humans can say, but what they can imagine. It starts small. A young hunter is describing a trail he followed earlier that day. Instead of just pointing and miming, he strings together a sequence: crack, who, mama, tomorrow. The moment he adds that last sound, tomorrow, you realize he's doing something profound, planning in the abstract. He's speaking of something that does not yet exist, and shaping the group's expectations around it. Before this, planning was limited to what you could show or act out in the present moment, but with these new time markers, people can create shared futures. That means coordinated hunts days in advance, preparations for ceremonies, and even strategies for moving camp before resources run dry. The shift is visible in how they solve problems. Now that they can compare possibilities aloud, you hear conversations about if and maybe, without those words existing yet. They use gesture and tone to mark the difference between a statement of fact and a speculation, a tilt of the head and a rising pitch to show uncertainty, a flat tone to mark certainty. This ability changes memory too. People start discussing events with more precision. Before the big rain, after the leopard came, when the moon was thin, they can string memories together in a way that reveals patterns, realizing, for example, that certain plants ripen a few nights after the first heavy rain. Language is becoming a tool for detecting cycles in nature. It also deepens relationships. Without structured speech, you can share food, touch, and glances, but you can't easily share what's in your head. Now you hear people attempting to describe dreams, to explain why they think one route is better than another, to express preference for a certain kind of stone. When making tools, these are the earliest sparks of opinion, persuasion, and even debate, not just over what to do, but why. And thought itself starts to take shape around the patterns of language. Once there's a sound for tomorrow, the mind begins to think more often in terms of tomorrow. Once there's a way to say before and after, people start naturally organizing memories that way. Language doesn't just record thought, it creates new ways to think. You see this in the children most of all. The boy explains a game to his sister using 2 gestures and 3 sounds, one of which is new to you, a guttural syllable placed between 2 action words. From context you realize it means and. It's tiny, but it allows him to link ideas without miming both at once. He can now imagine a chain of events, do this and then that without acting it out. By the end of the week you're aware that this group's world has grown. They can hold a conversation about where to go in 2 days, what to bring, and who should come, without moving a step. They can discuss a hunt that happened a season ago as if it's happening in the room. They can consider dangers that haven't yet appeared on the horizon. And it hits you, the moment humans learned to order their thoughts into sound, the world itself got bigger because the future and the past could finally exist in the same breath. The rainy season is fading, and the camp is preparing to move. You've been here long enough to hear every kind of sound this group can make: sharp hunting clicks, soft ceremonial hums, names for people and places, playful mimicry around the fire. But now you're about to witness the moment when all those scattered pieces fuse into something new, the leap from sounds to speech. It happens at dusk. The sky is streaked with red, the air rich with the smell of damp soil, and the group is gathered in loose clusters, sorting possessions for the journey. You're sitting near a woman shaping a new carrying sling from twisted plant fiber. A young man approaches her and says clearly without gesture, 3 sounds in sequence you've never heard strung together before. She freezes for a moment, then smiles and answers back in the same style. You realize that what you just heard wasn't just a list of signals or names. It had structure, rhythm, and a flow that carried meaning through sound alone. There was no pointing, no acting, just voice. Over the next hour you hear it again and again. 2 men planning the hunt for tomorrow exchange a series of sounds that specify the location, the time of day, and even the order in which they'll move. A child asks for water with a sound sequence that doesn't require holding up a gourd. An elder describes a distant place to a newcomer entirely in sound, their hands resting in their lap the whole time. This is the turning point. The reliance on gesture is still there, it always will be, but it's no longer necessary for clarity. The voice alone can carry the load. Sounds aren't just attached to single meanings anymore, they're being combined, ordered and reshaped to express complex layered ideas. It's startling how quickly this transformation accelerates. Once people realize they can build meaning without acting it out, the combinations multiply. Word-like sounds for go, river and food can be combined into go to the river for food, or rearranged to mean something entirely different. The building blocks are simple, but the possibilities are infinite. And something else happens. People start to talk just to talk. Two women exchange a string of sentences as they work, smiling at each other without any urgent reason. A boy follows his father around, chattering in small, halting phrases, clearly enjoying the act of speaking even when no one answers. Communication has moved beyond survival. It's becoming a form of connection, play and self-expression. From here, the path to fully developed languages is inevitable. Grammar will grow more complex, vocabulary will expand, and sounds will shift over generations. But the leap has been made. For the first time in human history, you're standing among people who can speak in a way that doesn't rely on shared sight or immediate context. When the group finally moves at dawn, their voices carry through the mist ahead of them, not just warnings or directions, but conversations. The air is alive with the sound of humanity's new gift, one that will outlast every stone tool, every camp, every trail they've walked. And you know, standing there listening, that nothing will ever be the same again.
Wind down.
300 words. The fire is low tonight, just a dull red glow cradled in a nest of ash. The day's voices have softened into murmurs, the occasional laugh breaking gently into the stillness. You sit back against a warm rock, eyes half closed, and let the sounds wash over you. Not words you could write down, but something richer, older, more fluid. Here in the hush, the sounds are like water over stone, shaping and reshaping themselves with every breath. You hear the rhythm of the day carried forward, echoes of a hunt, fragments of a song, the low hum of a blessing whispered over a sleeping child. You can feel the pull of connection in it, the thread that